Okay, so some of our usual regular listeners will know that last week I was adamant that this fixture, the Carabao Cup third round trip to Anfield, the one we're almost guaranteed to lose in anyway, was last week. I was adamant it was last Wednesday. It's not. It's actually this Wednesday. So we're previewing it this week as opposed to last week. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Henry Jackson from This Is Anfield. You all right, Henry?
Hello, mate. Yeah, cheers for having me on.
Always a pleasure, mate. This is the first time we've spoken to you or any other Liverpool fan about a West Ham Liverpool game that doesn't involve Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, Arne Slot replaced him in the summer. How do Liverpool fans feel about Slot's first few games? I mean, you've already lost one. We'll get onto that in a little bit. Barely any transfer activity as well. What's the first impressions?
Very positive, I think, to be fair. I think, when you lose a person of that stature, you do worry about how he's going to be replaced. And he is kind of irreplaceable in a lot of ways. I think the best thing that Slot has done is just done everything his own way. He's not tried to copy him. He hasn't got that extrovert personality that Klopp had, pumping his fists in front of the Kop and all that. So he's just doing it his own way. He's more chilled, doesn't get involved as much with the crowd, all that sort of theatrics. But I think in terms of his tactics and the performances that we've seen, largely have been kind of excellent on the whole. There was that obviously defeat against Forest, which was just, well, it was a terrible performance. And I'm hoping it's just one of those that happens to the top teams maybe once every couple of years, where it's just everything goes wrong and everyone's bad on the day. But, we thrashed United away. We've had a couple of very routine home wins, which have just been solid, not spectacular, but just good football, got the job done. And I think everyone's just impressed really by the way he's come in and, not tried to be like Klopp and gone about it all his own way, really. So positive signs, but I'm obviously wary of, I don't want to be one of those fans that's going overboard saying, oh, he's going to be better than Klopp and this and that. But I'm certainly impressed with him so far.
Well, it's stark contrast, mate, to what's going on at West Ham at the moment. Obviously, we've got a new manager in Julen Lopetegui, and 5 games in, and there are already fans, including the co-host of the We Are West Ham podcast, Will Pugh, who want him gone already. Bizarrely, I'm of the persuasion that Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a little bit of time, and we are only five games in. But there are some things, well, actually quite a lot of things that probably need to be sorted out. But yeah, it's very, very different. A different feeling about our new manager at West Ham at the moment compared to Liverpool's. In terms of the transfer activity, see, mostly young players and kind of fringe players or older players being released or sold. Only 2 incomings in Chiesa and I can never pronounce his name, Mamardashvili.
Yeah.
He's the goalkeeper, obviously not number 1. So I was actually quite surprised. You get a new manager coming in to a big club like Liverpool, almost half expect them to flash the cash a little bit. Obviously, we've got PSR rules and financial fair play to consider as well. But how do Liverpool fans feel throughout the summer when it was becoming increasingly obvious that there may not even be one signing, let alone only a couple?
Well, yeah, I think we've got used now with FSG as owners. I think we know that they're not going to be splashing the cash in amounts. We've got used to that. But I think I think everyone knew that Klopp had left Slot a really good squad. It was a squad that didn't need massive changes, but it needed a few. Certainly that sort of deep line midfielder was the one, which, you look at Rodri and him in particular, no one's as good as him, but that's the kind of player I think they needed, I think in the eyes of many, to kind of be genuine sort of title contenders. And they pushed hard to get Zubimendi from Sociedad, which he looked like he was their number 1 target, but he stayed put. So I think there was then frustration that they then didn't try and get someone else, which I kind of admire it in a way that with Van Dijk, it was the same. They didn't get him in the summer and they waited till January and eventually got him. But I think we were crying out for that sort of number 6. And don't tell me that there's not another one around Europe who can do a good job and that Zubimendi's the only one. So I think a lot of fans were frustrated with that. Probably another centre-back was needed as well, I think, with Konate quite injury-prone. So I think I'm sort of Van Dijk 33 now, so someone to rotate a little bit with him might be a backup option. So those 2 positions were key. So then it's brought in Chiesa, who I think is a really good player when he's not injured, but we didn't necessarily need him. So it was kind of it was a bit of a weird one, and I'm not complaining that we got him, but we already have got 5 very strong attacking players. So it was frustrating, and we have kind of got used to it. But I think you feel that this is a squad that's close to challenging. When you just need those one or two additions, then it's frustrating not to see it happen. So I'm waiting for the day when they do really go big in the summer, because it always seems to come out from the local journalists, next summer's going to be the one, and it never seems to be. So it's frustrating, but we do still have a great squad, to be fair.
Oh yeah, 100%. From the outside in, you look at the players you got. It almost, I mean, from a West Ham point of view, almost, you don't need to add any more players to that quality. You've already got so much quality. But I see that, because all it takes is one big name to come in and fix a problem position, and immediately it can completely elevate a side, any side.
Yeah.
That said, you've lost one. You mentioned it earlier. You've lost one game already. That happens to be the only goal you've conceded so far in the league this season. The 1-0 home defeat to Forest a couple of weeks ago. What happened there? You mentioned it was a bad performance. I immediately saw it and went, well, that's probably bad news for West Ham, because it means that we're going to be at the wrong end of a hiding, because Liverpool are going to be angry and they're not going to want to lose another home game so quickly. Was it just a bad day at the office, or did Forest exploit a weakness that maybe Lopetegui's also looking to find out what that weakness is?
I think it was lots of things. I think for starters, it was straight after the international break, which never helps. It's never easy when you've got players like Diaz, McAllister, who've been in South America. So you haven't had time on the training ground. I think Forest has had 2 weeks to sort of prepare without too many internationals. So that played well. And to be fair to Forest, they did a really good job. They, low block, defended for their lives, and just frustrated. A little bit like Arsenal against City yesterday. Yeah. It was a little bit like that, and we started to get a bit desperate, and that on top of the fact that I think it was just one of those days where probably 9 of the 11 players were just terrible, or certainly 8. The defence were okay, but anyone in the midfield and the attack they just couldn't do anything right, including the subs. So I think sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say another team have done you a bit tactically, or you've just had a bad day at the office. And I think probably we've got used to just such a high level of consistency under Klopp, and having to stay with City all these years, that when you lose a home game, it's like an absolute disaster. When you kind of look back to even United at their most dominant, they would just go and lose at home to, I don't know, Coventry or something in the 90s and still win the league, and no one would really care. So it was just, I think it was just a shocker, and it was important to bounce back against Bournemouth, because I think that worried people that if we'd gone and dropped points there, then there would have been more to it. But you could argue that low block is maybe the way to play us, because Bournemouth didn't do that, pressed us, and then we're 3-0 up at half time, and you could call that a little bit naive from them. So yeah, I do think that's probably the way you're going to have the most success against Liverpool, but I would also put it down to just a terrible day.
Yeah, I think we can expect a low block from West Ham on Wednesday. Let's look at Wednesday night. And I'm going to touch on, I hate doing this, and I feel like I do this every time when I talk about West Ham v Liverpool. I just want to bring up West Ham's almost non-existent record at Anfield. Overall, actually, home and away, we've actually only won once against Liverpool in the last 17 meetings. And that was the 3-2 win at London Stadium back in 2021. The record at Anfield is quite pitiful, actually. 1 win since 1963. That was the 3-0 victory under Bilic in 2015. So it's 61 years. In 61 years, you've had 1 win at Anfield, which is why no one is expecting anything other than a complete and utter hiding on Wednesday night. And if you look at our overall history at Anfield, this makes it even worse. 72 trips to Anfield in history. We've won 4.
Wow,
that's a win percentage of 6. So actually, and when you consider that fourth win at Anfield came in 2015, 8 years ago, it's not looking good. And last year we travelled to Anfield in the quarter-final stage of this competition and lost 5-1. And I think West Ham fans are expecting a very similar thing. Are you expecting it? I mean, in terms of the team that we might expect Liverpool to play, is it going? Do you think Slot's going to go for a trophy like the Carabao Cup this year, or is he going to focus his efforts elsewhere?
I'm sure he'd want the trophy, probably, but the only thing I look at it we've had a couple of times now in recent years where we got to the final, won it actually, which is great. Obviously, any day out of Wembley and all that, but in the long run, it's actually almost been detrimental in the league, where our players have ended up being knackered by April, and we like last season we just fell away from City and Arsenal because of sort of long cup runs. So I'm not saying chuck it or anything like that, because I want to win every competition, but Slot will certainly see it as, I'm sure, the least important of the four that he's in. So I think you'll probably see, I would guess sort of 6-7 changes, I would say. I don't think he'll just literally change the whole team, but I think you'll see sort of Kwanzaa come in at the back, Gomez, Tsimikas, Bradley right back. So it could be the whole back four. Kelleher, I think, will stay in because he was in for Alisson on Saturday. And then I think you probably see people like Jones in midfield. Gakpo, Jota will come in. I think Nunes will probably keep his place after scoring, because I think he'll want to keep his confidence up. So I think maybe leave out Diaz and Salah, something like that, and bring them on a sub. So I think you'll see it will be much change, but it's not going to be one of these games where it's a bunch of kids playing. I think it's still going to be a strong Liverpool team, and I would expect us to beat you, because to be fair, you might also make changes and be a bit weakened as well, depending on what the manager does. But I don't think it will be a 5-1 or something personally. I could see it being a little bit of a slightly disjointed performance because of the changes, but maybe 2-0 or something like that, 2-1. But yeah, I would expect your terrible record to probably continue.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's gonna question that. I think, I'm quite glad that you think that Luis Diaz might not be in the starting 11. I watched the extended highlights. You went over Bournemouth, and he scored 2 goals, but he just looks so good, so electric. And I was watching it just going, I fear for our defence if he's playing on Wednesday night, because he's going to be carnage.
He's been an up and down player with the fans, because he's got it in him, but he's had this lack of end product sort of thrown at him. Players like Salah who just get 20, 30 goals a season, and Diaz is such an electric player, but he doesn't do that, and he misses chances. But this season he's got, I think, 5 and 5, and it's probably been our best attacking player. So yeah, I think because of that, I think he'll be left. I think it'll probably be Gakpo out on the left wing, and he'll have a breather.
But you'd still have pace in that team, and essentially that's what worries me the most, mate, is because against Chelsea, obviously we lost that game 3-0, and if you look at just the scoreline, you go, West Ham were thrashed. Some West Ham fans might disagree, but actually we didn't play that terribly. We had more possession than Chelsea, we had more shots, more passes, more corners. But they beat us on 3 counter-attack goals, and essentially it was apart from midfield splitting passes into Nicholas Jackson, essentially it was the pace of the likes of Jadon Sancho, Jackson and Madueke up front that beat us.
Yeah.
And that's what's worrying me about Liverpool, because everyone knows about the pace in Liverpool's attack.
Yeah.
And that's the big concern, which is why it will likely be a very, very, very low block, probably the lowest of blocks going, to try and stop those runs in behind and kind of just almost like camp out. I'd like to see it have a go, but then, as you said, Bournemouth have tried that in the last couple of days and it backfired.
I think if you're asking me as a fan, I'd always rather a team come at us than sit
of course.
that space in behind. But yeah,
I think teams like West Ham and Bournemouth, they try that with the best intentions, but actually, unless you're an Arsenal, you're a Man City, or even a Chelsea or Spurs, then you're probably going to regret it by the end of the 90 minutes, I think. That aside, is there anything, do you think, if I'm Arne Slot, what am I concerned about from West Ham's team? Do you think he's going to be looking at a certain area of the team going, West Ham could hurt us in here if we don't pay attention?
I suppose it's probably with teams like West Ham, it is always going to be that sort of counter attack. I suppose that threat that Bowen always seems to do well against us. Certainly, I think I certainly picture him scoring a few at Anfield. I think certainly
a couple last year at Anfield. Yeah.
He's good. I like him a lot, and I think he'd be a really strong sort of squad player for Liverpool. I think I'd have liked him. I suppose under Klopp we would lose the ball and we'd be even more vulnerable on the counter-attack because we'd take extra risks. I think we've maybe shored up a little bit defensively in that respect, where Slot is a bit more patient with the ball and we don't lose it as much, but we do still get counter-attacked. So I think, him, Kudus I like. I'm not sure you'd have on the left wing now.
Might be Somerville.
Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, he scored a winner at Anfield for Leeds a couple of seasons ago. So I think that will probably be the biggest sort of threat, is we get a little bit against Forest. We were sloppy on the ball. We lost the ball so much, and that then leaves you exposed when you do that, and you have fast players breaking on you. So I think it's sort of that sort of 3 or 4 in attack that you'll have. Antonio's done. I mean, he's probably not the player he was now, I imagine, but he's done well against us. In the past. He's certainly, on his day, he can be like a bloody nightmare to play against. So I think that's how I'd look at it. Is I think we'll have a lot of the ball, but if we're sloppy in possession and we're playing a team that's a bit mismatched and not played together much this season, then I could see us sort of you looking a threat on the break, definitely.
Yeah, I think that all rests in the lineup that Lopetegui goes with. Where Antonio is concerned, if Fulkrug's not fit, he's missed the last couple with an ankle injury picked up on the international break, then it might. I mean, he went with Bowen instead of Antonio against Chelsea. With that in mind, he probably will do it again, because Antonio came off the bench against Chelsea and was non-existent essentially.
Yeah.
And then obviously the pace of Kudus. Somerville was very impressive against Chelsea, so I expect him to keep his place. The midfield for us is a big problem. You know, he's stuck with 2 defensive midfielders in Alvarez and Rodriguez for the last 4 games, and it's just not worked.
No. Was Alvarez? I think Alvarez looked very slow. Was he quite slow? There was a goal. One of the goals from Chelsea. I thought he was injured, and I saw the replay, and it was like running in trees.
He's good in possession, but out of possession, I think he spent most of his career playing in Spain.
Yeah,
and I think all of his career playing in Spain, to be fair. And Barcelona wanted him, didn't go there, and then he came to us instead. And I think it shows that actually he's more suited to the very sort of relaxed, slow kind of pace that you get in La Liga. On the ball, he can knock the ball about, no problem. Puts in a good tackle every now and then. But he's I don't think he's up to it in terms of the pace.
No.
Whereas Carlos Soler's arrived, an actual Spaniard, but also just a little bit more forward thinking, a little bit quicker, a little bit more quick to react. And I think he's the one that's going to be the long-term replacement for Rodriguez once he's match fit. And I wouldn't be surprised if he started at Anfield, Soler, in his place. Well, we're going to move on to a match prediction, Henry. Before I let you go, mate, it seems a little bit futile to ask for a score prediction, given everyone knows that Liverpool are going to win this. But we're going to do it anyway. What do you think, mate?
I'll go 2-0. I think 2-0. I don't think it will be a classic, and I don't think we'll necessarily be great, but I think probably just that extra quality, maybe off the bench as well. If your legs are tiring a bit and we can bring on Diaz, Salah or whatever, then I think that probably be the difference. So I could maybe see like a 0-0 at half time, a little bit dull, and then we just pull away a bit in the second half will be my prediction.
2-0. You're too kind, mate. You could have said 6-0 and I would have believed you. It's absolutely fine.
I think it would be, maybe if we had our strongest team, then maybe. But yeah,
fair.
I'll go 2-0.
Fair. I can't help but go, I think it's going to be at least 4 for Liverpool. It's a game there like we could really do with a win, having really played. We scraped a draw at Fulham before the Chelsea game. We could really do with just a really confidence boosting performance and result. It's just the last team stadium we need to be playing at this week is Anfield and Liverpool, to be fair. But I just can't see anything other than a 4-0 win. I hope I'm wrong. If it ends 1-0 or 2-0, like you've said, then I'll be absolutely delighted, to be honest. As much as I love a cup run. But yeah, we'll leave it there, Henry. As always, thanks so much for joining us this week, and good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, not good luck for Wednesday.
Pleasure, mate. Cheers for having me on.